Joe and I look forward to episode of Marketing Masterminds. All right, I'm not even gonna
Oh,
say.
well, there you go. We'll be back.
We'll be
Promise. The real challenge isn't production anymore,
Where in the content creation process should the human element remain non-negotiable?
but has the bar for what makes content effective just gotten higher for everyone?
Practical tools that make our marketing smarter and our operations more effective. Welcome everybody to Marketing Masterminds. Today we are joined by Saurav Sen, who is our VP of Enterprise Data and AI Platforms at AmeriLife.
Pleasure to be here, Bill and Joe.
Nice to see you. So, today, our entire goal is to really separate the hype from reality when we're talking about AI. All right, so we're going to jump right in.
Sure.
When we're thinking about organizations that are really adapting and bringing in AI very well, how is it that they're structuring that, and how is it that they're approaching AI overall to be so successful?
In my experience, different enterprises are approaching it very differently. But the ones that are succeeding or will be set up for success are the ones who is thinking from an operationalization perspective, which is not just about using various AI tools, but to fundamentally shift the way AI has been embraced.
Makes complete sense.
So what does scale look like when you operationalize something, especially thinking about the financial professionals, the insurance agents that we serve here at AmeriLife?
Yeah. So here, as an example, if you see, right, uh, let's say there is no AI. There are certain ways to do stuff. Now, with the help of AI, we can do, let's say, we can get 10x productivity, 20x productivity. What do I mean by that? It is not operating in silos across various use cases or departments. Let's say in finance, for example, or in marketing, for example, uh, you know, removing the repeated work, for example, that you do on a day-to-day basis, getting some data together, making some phone calls, curating some emails, getting some reports or dashboards, all these things combined together creates a lot of impact when you get it like in seconds in front of you with the help of AI. So when you have that, then you're like empowered to operate at a, let's say, 10x level with precision. So that's how I see AI, not just working in silos or writing some prompts to get some results, but to inject it in every aspect of our day-to-day work.
I've heard people say, and I'd like your thoughts on this, that adoption of AI and scaling AI, if you are a financial professional or if you're an agent, is not about understanding the AI. It's about taking a sharp look at the processes that hold you back and then thinking about AI. Can you talk a little, whether you agree with that or not, and talk a little bit about that process?
I totally agree with that. And essentially, it comes down to my philosophy when I say like there are three pillars in the entire AI adoption. The first pillar is to really understand the business well. If you're a finance professional, that's where the game begins, right? No AI can replace the fundamental work that a person does. The second question is educating yourself from how AI could be used in an optimal way. A lot of us still think it's about ChatGPT or Copilot, like writing some prompts. 2 years back, we used to say a lot. Even today, I see leaders say, garbage in, garbage out. You need to have clean data for an AI strategy. I say this is an old statement because you can essentially use AI to even clean up your data. You can use AI to even do your data engineering, for example. You can use AI to even work in your in finance or in any particular department with precision. So fundamentally, to bring all these things together, the third pillar is, of course, business impact. You need to have business impact, and when you tie these three things with optimized processes, and I can expand on that much more in detail if you want me to. That's when result happens. That's when hyperscale happens with precision.
Speaking of the processes that you just mentioned, if we switch it over a little bit from the insurer's point of view, it seems like they're applying AI to underwriting workflows and examples like that, but they're not necessarily maybe looking at it from that fundamental view that you're speaking of. So, how would they do that, or why is that so important, and should they be?
Exactly. This in a way, if you put it, it's that AI tool first mindset, right? Can I get an AI tool which can help me underwrite, or can I get an AI tool which would help, let's say, write a policy or something like that? Instead of thinking from that perspective, I would suggest that, hey, this is the way we work. These are the steps that I follow, and I know what are the ways to do things better with the help of AI, and then use AI strategically. For example, if you are writing something, giving the right instructions and prompts to get the underwriting done well, understanding the workflow, and in every workflow, every step, there are various ways to use AI to make it better. There could be a code component to it. There could be some generative content component to it. So depending on the component or the complexity of the work, AI could be integrated, and that's when you think from a workflow perspective, you would see 80% is kind of automated, at scale, and then all you are focusing on is like strategy. Focusing on strategy, you're thinking, penning it down. Those points essentially become your metadata, which would be driving your various algorithms and AI tools essentially, and then that's when you get great results.
Sounds like what we're seeing a lot of right now is people that are taking AI tools and trying to fill it into tactics or small pieces of the puzzle, not looking at the entire puzzle or the entire process from the beginning. And so it's more of like a mind shift of the angle to look at it, is what it sounds like.
Exactly, because you have to adapt to these tools, right? But fundamentally, if in today's world, I challenge, name a tool and we can build it in-house. But the moment I say that, it means 100% customization. The way we operate, the way our partners operate, the way our affiliates and agents on ground operate is what we can customize with the help of AI with better capabilities in these platforms. But that doesn't mean that the tools are not great. We onboard them very strategically to make sure it integrates well with our entire ecosystem.
I'm old enough, Saurabh, to have been through a couple of these revolutions at work, whether it was the paperless office, whether it was the internet, whether it was web apps, whether it was APIs and connectivity. I argue that we are now in the biggest of all of those with AI. All of those have a certain thing in common. There were successful examples at the beginning, there were unsuccessful examples, but all of them seem to take too long.
Yeah.
Now, we're accelerating very quickly here at AmeriLife. What do you see is the biggest disconnect between the successful integrations and the non-successful integrations, and doing it quickly and taking advantage of the efficiencies that this offers us?
Hype versus reality, if I would like to fit into this framework, right, is the business impact first mindset.
That third pillar that you
The
talked
third
about.
pillar I'm talking about, right? We can use AI in silos to achieve some scale, but then how to bring it all together is the biggest question. And that's when you need to have process optimization. You have to think differently how we are approaching, let's say, a workflow. Using specific AI tools or building specific AI tools to improve that part. So when these three things or four things comes together, business impact first mindset, any activity or any action we take or any AI approach that we take is essentially tied back to those KPIs, to those business impacts in terms of bottom line, top line, speed, efficiency, stuff like that, and then making sure that the processes are adapting to it. We cannot fit the old processes into this new world. If we are moving so fast, right, we can club together 10 workflows into one and call that as one work stream instead of like 10 different work streams, as an example. So it's all these things when it comes together from a leadership perspective. That's when I feel the success story really happens, and it's going to happen in this company.
Yeah, and we're fortunate here at AmeriLife that we have invested so heavily in those leaders that understand that vision of how tools need to be interconnected in order for us to get that maximum yield. Now, if I'm putting myself in the position of an advisor or an insurance agent who's out there in the field, they may not have the benefit in their particular office of all of that infrastructure. But I think what I'm hearing you say is the lesson to be learned here is to think about the tool chain, not the tools. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, exactly. Like if I think from an agent perspective, right, or an affiliate perspective, affiliate end of the day is a person who is doing his business in an amazing way. He's
Hmm.
an entrepreneur in a way, right? So if I
Very much an
Yeah,
entrepreneur.
absolutely.
absolutely, right? So if I keep myself in that person's shoes, I'll say that, hey, these are my pain points. These are the things where I'm spending a lot of my time and energy just to generate this business. But I don't want to give up the niche that I have that makes me an entrepreneur at first place, right? So I'll separate these two, and then I focus, okay, we have a bigger platform like EveryLife where we have, let's say, we have all the best practices and processes with the help of AI, which will preserve my customization, which would preserve the uniqueness that I have, but it'll also help me to be part of something centralized with all the bells and whistles, which would scale my business far better, right? So I would think in that way, right? And then with the help of those focused use cases, when we understand that, hey, this is what's creating that difference, that's when we grow and we help our affiliates too.
I feel like right now there's so many new AI tools that are coming out all the time. So there's always that next new thing that people want to pay attention to or they want to learn about. What advice would you give when it's so easy for agents, advisors, or marketers to kind of get distracted by the next new thing, to kind of keep them focused, to not get distracted, or to really go after those tools that do optimize their processes or work within their workflows?
Fantastic question. It means there is a tool out there which is doing some great sales or marketing, which tells us, hey, it's good to embrace that, right? This takes me back to the second pillar. If I am AI, educated, I know what are the capabilities it can generate. I would easily see through the hype, right? That's the first question. First thing that I'll be mindful of. Second is, I would literally tie it back to the third pillar, right? Okay, so this particular tool is helping me, let's say, to reduce my, the pajama job I say, right? Like the stuff that you do, which is not strategic, but you have to do some sort of paperwork. Let's say reducing by like 70% or 80%. I'll make a list of all of that and I'll see if it's tying back to my KPIs. And then third thing I'll do is that if I'm using this tool, how it is integrating with my entire, let's say, platform or the structure that I'm having in place. So that'll help me divide between the hype and the reality. Probably it's a great tool to have, which would help some of the folks out there in my company. But it doesn't necessarily mean that's the route, because end of the day, you have to bring everything together. That's when the senior leadership comes into play, right? It's not siloed anymore. Everything is kind of tied together.
Saurav, thank you very much for joining us. I really enjoyed this conversation, as I'm sure
Yeah.
our audience did, and we will see you next time on Marketing Masterminds.